Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those of who are new to this space, my name is Christina. I'm a naturopath as well as a carnivore. And here is where I do conversations with carnivores. So remember to hit the subscribe button and the like button and share it with some friends because you never know what we're going to talk about might actually be helping them. So I want to invite you to help me welcome Jenaya to tonight's session. We're going to be talking all things carnivore. So welcome, Jenaya.
Thank you very much, Christina. It's a pleasure to be invited on this podcast, and a pleasure to meet you too, a fellow carnivore.
Absolutely. I think us carnivores sometimes need to kind of stick together and network and get to find each other and meet each other through the pathways. So usually the first question I generally start with is, one, how long have you been carnivore? And two, what took you on that pathway? Because it's not a common pathway.
No, it's definitely not a common pathway for a lot of people. It's funny how I've actually known about carnivore for quite some time. I was just really afraid of it. My one of my siblings and their wife, they kind of practiced the carnivore lifestyle themselves. And at the time, I was really ill, and I couldn't understand the concept of a high fat, high protein diet, whereas that generally would make me sick to my stomach to have. So, but eventually over time, I started eating a ketogenic way of life in order to lose weight, as most people tend to do. And when I realized my hypothyroidism was returning is when I was coming across stuff in my Facebook feeds about carnivore. Actually, I met her over seeing somebody in a Facebook group for the snake diet, which because I was interested in fasting. I had been practicing intermittent fasting and some prolonged fasting um, into some of my own biohacking, if you will. And so that got me into looking into groups and that, and I was seeing anecdotally that there was a lot of women healing hypothyroidism at various degrees, at various levels. Some would take a couple of months, up to 6 months. Some would take a year. It just depended really on what they were doing. So that got me interested and starting to look further into it. And so I decided to clean out my kitchen and dwindle down everything I had. I got to the strict part of carnivore and reverted back to a more ketovore uh, sort of way of life. And then I had to slow down. I was overtraining. I got into bodybuilding. I've been into bodybuilding ever since I started eating ketogenically because it's been a long term goal of mine to build mass. I was very heavily involved with that, but I also it took a lot of learning realization when the hypothyroidism came back, that a lot of hormetic stressors was probably affecting it. And I was still practicing an old school mentality of dieting down, but still trying to eat ketogenically. So there was a lot of mental fighting with that, and for basically force feeding myself to eat a lot of meat. And that what perked that interest was mostly my doctor said that I guess my high cholesterol could be because of my hypothyroidism. So I was getting tested back to back to back, and my cholesterol didn't change, but my triglycerides and my HDL were all like perfection. He ran it against, discussed it with a cardiologist in my province. I am in Alberta, Canada, and they determined that I am not in a need for statins. Don't have a high risk of a cardiovascular disease or a cardiovascular disease related event, and that I can continue the lifestyle. And I inquired about a CAC score, and my doctor said, I guess it probably has to do with the fact that we're in Canada, that unless I was feeling super ill or very poor health, that there was no reason for me to do a CAC score. I did go check lipoprotein A, I checked thyroid antibodies, I was ruled out for Hashimoto's. I'm not completely healed of my hypothyroidism, but I feel like I'm getting close. So if it wasn't for the hypothyroidism, the fact that I had to take a pill every day, which I hate because I'm not gonna lie, I keep forgetting to do it. I just would rather maintain my food, prepare some steaks, do a little workout, do some weight training, and be on with my day and not have to worry about it. Just chill, you know. I started a less with more sort of aspect for this lifestyle and weight training too as well, and it's been so far working so good, and I enjoy it. I feel healthier. I always feel better eating meat. I have tried to dabble back here and forth to test to see if I can handle this or that might be around still, like the odd I have peanut butter sitting there. I might try that and I find if anything it perks my appetite more. I might,
Mm.
start overeating things I shouldn't be. I do dabble things with recipes like Kelly Hogan's Oopsie Cake. I've dabbled with adding sweeteners and vanilla to it, the keto sweeteners, um, and it works. Oh, I guarantee you, it for sure works. And I actually use it to make bread now. Guarantee it does take a lot of eggs, and the price of eggs have probably gone up a significant amount around the world. I buy 30 flats, but I because I've developed a method of weight training and using a lot of eggs in my diet for weight training to gain more mass. I'm going through a lot more eggs now. So eggs and beef are just my main staple now. And the relaxed aspect of it, as I like to call myself, relaxed carnivore Jenaya, is that I still use spices. I still use herbs and spices freely. Cinnamon, I find it helps pre-prep an insulin response in preparation for food to come. So I usually have it in a butter coffee or bulletproof coffee. I do like MCT oil on occasion. I'm looking to probably cut that out because it's an additional cost, even though butter is crazy in price up here. It's like $6 for a pound here, Canadian. But I will go out of my way and buy 6 and 7 blocks, and that usually lasts me the month between cooking and all my steaks. I usually season with it because I usually buy the salted stuff. I prefer the salt stuff because it just makes seasoning easier. I'm lazy. I'm not gonna lie. That's great about this lifestyle. I can be lazy, so I don't mind making the oopsie cakes, but I get lazy, and sometimes I'll whip up some whipped cream and have it like as a dessert, or I'll freeze it like in ice cream and just eat it straight up there and feast on that sort of aspect. But I've gotten to lazy with just fried eggs and the steak, or fried eggs and ground beef. It's easy, it's simple, it's it's a little salt and pepper, and I cook with a little bit of lard. It's the easiest fat for me to use, because I find if I'm not watching my burner, it gets really, really hot, and if I burn butter, I feel really bad. So I rather the lard get burnt than that. So I do use that for cooking, but I usually don't eat a lot of pork or non-ruminant. Now I've like I liked it before. I don't mind leaner meats, but I don't feel as great, I find, on it. It could be where seasonings that were used on it. But it just makes it easier for like family get-together. So not everybody's like catering to me being just, salt and pepper and that's it. That's all she wants, and butter and whatnot. Like I can have the odd veg or the odd herb and spice that might be on it, or if something was cured, it's not gonna completely bother me, and that I just might end up with half my plate or the entire plate of all the meat that you had. And sorry, not sorry, but you didn't
Yeah,
invite me to dinner over to dinner. And it's
it's like the
buffet
best
style,
part
so
anyway.
oh, it is the best part. Prime rib steaks all the way. I love it. I love it. I try and go for the deals. I try and shop frugally. I'd like to look into purchasing a cow with my siblings, hopefully here later on in the summer, maybe make it cheaper, because I do like red meat is great. Between the red meat and the eggs, and what I know what it can do for bodybuilding and being basically nature's perfect nutrient dense
Mhm.
food, and perfect, well, bodybuilding steroid. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Vince Gironda's
Yeah.
diet for
Yep.
definition. He know,
36
I know he
eggs.
did cycle, yeah, those steak and eggs, and that's basically what I've been doing. And fluctuating that with some prolonged fasting for more for the autophagic healing aspects during times where my hormones probably won't be as adversely affected from hormetic stressors. So I do some 48-hour fasts or 72-hour fasts if I really feel keen on it, 2 to 3 times a month right now, and that seems to be working out really, really nice. I'm feasting towards the end of my cycle phase in nurturing hormones and hoping that this proper way of eating after over so many years growing up. I grew up obese. I grew up vegetarian and vegan for a large
Oh,
part of my life.
wow.
Since
I'm
probably
curious, like that vegetarian and that vegan sort of space that you grew up in, was that because of your choosing, or was that because like that's what your
no,
parents chose, or like how did that happen?
that was my mother's choosing. So just abruptly out of nowhere, I was probably close to about 2 years of age. So I know my brother was born, but my sister had not been, and we were pretty close in age range. And just one day, I was wondering, I was just like, "Where's the milk and where's the bacon?" And all of a sudden there's all these vegetables in my drawer, and I couldn't even find my favorite juice anymore, and if I did, oh boy, was it gone the next day. Climbing cupboards looking for something snacks and discovering things like Oreo cookies on occasion and the odd chocolate bar. Oh, I would annihilate that. Butter, I didn't know because I didn't know how to cook as a kid. I just started climbing cupboards and started putting butter and popcorn because I knew how to make popcorn. That was easy, but I didn't know how to melt the butter in the popcorn. So I have these popcorn balls and trying to figure out what to eat. And couldn't understand why we were eating vegan vegetarian. And I thought it was mostly to be healthy. That sugar, I was basically ingrained that sugar wasn't good for you, refined sugar. So there was a lot of like avocados and whole grain breads, um, raw food, lots of raw vegetables. Oh my goodness. Fit for life diet. That's what it is. My mother was trying to lose weight, as far as I know, and it was a fit for life diet in the 80s, and somehow, some way, I never read the book, but it looked like that's where most of the vegan vegetarian idea came from, but also implemented a timing for certain foods. So for breakfast, all we were allowed were fruits up until
Oh,
noon.
wow.
And then we were allowed anything that pertained to grains and carbohydrates and vegetables and legumes. No meats, no dairy. We didn't do eggs for the longest time. Eggs didn't come into the picture until I was like pre-teens, maybe late mid-teens. And we changed our way of eating because we were becoming more active, I guess, and growing up a little bit more. But it sucked. The 80s sucked for vegetarian food, and the health food store was a nightmare for me. Like milk, almond milk, I hate it. I hate rice milk. I hate almond milk. I hate soy milk. I think those are the nastiest things on this planet. But that's what I was growing up with. And so it didn't make any sense to me, and I thought it was just I thought it was a cost effective thing. I had heard that meat was expensive at the time, or at least that's what my brother had let me in on at that time, that I guess cost effective wise and money wise, that meat was not as common to like buy, especially red meat. Because but we used to buy a lot of like, I've seen pictures of me with a big drumstick turkey in my mouth as a kid. And I was like, well, what happened to those days? Now, why am I being fed raw asparagus like it's the next best thing to white bread? And like, why, mom, are you feeding me this? I hated asparagus at the time. Used to eat it when I wasn't more carnivore, more ketovore, I suppose, or keto. But I learned to hate food a long ways, and I couldn't understand why everybody else was allowed to eat Kraft dinner back in the day when Kraft dinner tasted good. Because I've tasted it now, and I don't think it tastes bleh, remotely that. Oh nope, and I've had some bad experiences with Kraft dinner. Um, and like itchy band noodles, and actually that was probably the start when we were get started growing up. We were starting being allowed dairy fats, and that I think is what led to me to my first beginning of overeating and becoming obese growing up as a child. still vegetarian, I guess more on the vegetarian versus vegan aspect, since there was the dairy and then eggs were in the mix, and the odd, red meat was starting to come into play, but nobody really knew how to cook it. It was shoe leather. I thought this was like horrendous. Why would anybody want to eat this? Okay, I can see why mom never let us eat it. And I gained weight immensely. It was crazy. But I saw a picture of myself as growing up that way, and I looked like I was pregnant. That's how big I
Oh,
was
wow.
at 9 years old. I don't know what my weight was. I wouldn't have been able to tell you, but growing up in the family that I did and the culture that is surrounding, I'm West Indian descent, Trinidadian, and there's a lot of name calling with regards to weight. So like fatty girl, fatty boy, that sort of thing. And your relatives will call you out on it. It's like, oh, you get fat and thing, girl. It get great. It sticks with you. It really does. It
Oh,
really
for
does affect you,
sure.
right? And when you have growing up a mother that's just like, oh, like I, as far as I could tell, looking back now, I was skinny fat, mostly because I was still eating very high carb, very high vegetables, moderate to low protein, and if it was very little ruminant. It was usually fish or chicken, both of which I didn't really care for anymore. So it's like you gave me roti or pita bread with butter on it,
Hmm.
I would eat like 7 of those, which shouldn't do that because that was instant weight gain. Uh, but even those so small implementations, if I wasn't active enough, I would just gain the weight, and it was just being punished to exercise, being punished by food,
Hmm.
sneaking out. I did there when we eventually moved to the big city. There's a lot of sneaking out when I was acquiring money from either babysitting, or I got a part-time job growing up, or became of age, legal age in my province. And go get alcohol and go to the bar and stuff like that. There was a gas station down the road, so my favorite was chocolate mint arrow bars sandwiched between ketchup chips. Oh yeah,
Oh my gosh.
right? Nobody would eat that except me. And I would sneak that. I would sneak that. That was one of my sins. If I had money, I would go to the grocery store, binge on that. I would eat that. I would inhale it because I couldn't have the evidence around, right?
Yep.
Couldn't have the evidence
Yep.
living at home. So got to eat and get rid of the evidence well before you go there and back. So I guess that was also a precursor to a lot of disordered eating growing
Hmm.
up.
Yep.
And as a young adult, eventually I got, became really, really ill in my life, between the hypothyroidism, which I realized I had, trying to diet down and keep my weight down the traditional style, um, eating and trying to eat properly, even though I was going all out, because after I moved out of mom and dad's place, well, guess what I did? I went to town. I went to town on all the foods. So I've been up and down, weight, left, right, and center. Like I've been obese for my height probably 3 or 4 times in my life. And it was only 2021. I want to say we're in 2023, yeah, mid summer 2021. I decided to take charge and go eat more ketogenically, and delve into that. And it worked up until some point where introducing too many stressors just brought the hypothyroidism back. And bada bing,
Yep.
bada boom, some comments here, delving here, algorithms here. Whatever might be listening to my algorithms and say, hey, popped up, here's carnivore. Try check this out. You're into fasting, check this out. And lo and behold, it's been doing very well now in my delving into carnivore. And I keep telling myself, like, I wish I knew what I know now eating the way I do, because I would never have experienced half of what I went through
Hmm.
growing up, metabolically ill, relying on improper foods, my hormones being out of whack, painful periods. Oh, that was a I I still technically have prescription medication for it, but I'm lucky if I need one now. So I
Yep.
have it for backup emergency just in case. But this methods and tactics that I've been implementing recently has been doing really, really well. So I'm hoping I don't need it eventually and just can use it for the odd earache because I still have some allergens that are environmental. Uh, Spring is coming, it's upon us. Everything's trying to melt. So we'll see how the carnivore does that for me as well. But I also found when I first went down strict and mean down that I was experiencing hormonal fluctuation sensitivities that I didn't know could possibly exist. I would notice when ovulation was occurring and it was painful, but not nearly as painful as the week leading up to my period. And I would get extreme headaches. And I would inquire in the community, and most of the community is on Facebook. Yes, I guess I'm old. I don't really use TikTok. I don't have Instagram or anything like that. Maybe one day again, maybe I'll do it, but not at this time. And I was dismissed by a lot of people with regards to that. So it was only in my
Oh dear.
further delving on YouTube. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bart K. I think
Yep.
he's a New Zealander. Yeah, Bart K.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of his channels got shut down, I think, but he's still got some other channels up and about. I joined his Discord and inquired there with regards to my hypothyroidism and my history. And I came across, I will shout him out. I don't even know if he's on YouTube, but I'll shout him out. Luke Gear, if you're watching this, thank you very much, man. A lot of what you said and what you taught me is the reason why I'm able to do what I am doing now. And I give a lot of credit to what you helped me with and taught me. So he helped me with my hypothyroidism regards to that and why I was becoming so sensitive and that I need to cut it. I needed to relax, hence Relaxed Carnivore. So I re-implemented small amounts of low anti-nutrient carbs and carbs that I had in my fridge. So I had pickled pepperoncini peppers. I had olives that were pickled, calamatas. I found I couldn't handle my pickled jalapenos anymore, so I cut that out, even though it was still in my fridge. Pickles, I was fine. Pickle juice, could have. It was easy. Raw shallots, I didn't mind, and the dairy. Said re-implementing dairy because it apparently goes through a couple more different pathways than glucose and fructose do.
Hmm.
That it might actually benefit me. So I started implementing those lower anti-nutrient carbs, picking up iceberg lettuce, cucumbers, and I got results with that. And there was another suggestion of quality taurine for, I guess, repair for mitochondrial repair at the cellular level, and alternating using fasted training to force more autophagy or
Yep.
autophagy. I'm probably
Yep.
mispronouncing it myself.
It can be
So
said both ways.
yes, please, yes, okay. Don't hurt me on it. Autophagy, yes. So I've been doing it that way, and now some people say that fasted weight training, you'll lose more, have more fat loss, and I agree to some extent, but if you want to build more lean mass, I finding that the fed state is better, but I still needed the healing aspect too. So I wanted to force it. So I was doing the
Mm.
taurine. I let my doctor know about the taurine. He was like, "Yeah, let me check it out." And then he gave me a call back. He's like, "Yeah, all good. Go for the taurine. I'm completely on board with that. Go for it." So I did the taurine and re-implementing the low anti-nutrient, doing fasted weight training. And slowly over time, I kind of got lazy, just trying to clean out what was around in my cupboards and stuff, and kind of went more ketovore. So picking up iceberg lettuce and the cucumbers again and all that stuff. And then I noticed I wasn't feeling as great trying to cheat. Had some protein powder mixed with milk and some peanut butter, and I would try to eat it. And then I was just like, okay, great. The protein's making me satiated. I can't
Mhm.
eat more than what I made. Put it in the fridge, go to eat it, then try and eat it the next day. And it's just like, oh, it just wasn't satisfying. And it's just like, well, am I full? No, I'm hungry still. So I reached for a block of cheese. Bye bye block of cheese. And I got violated. It's like, well, I mean, I didn't starve myself today, so this is good. I fed myself. I feel satiated, and I guess throw out the peanut butter and protein powder mix. And because I have done the dabbling of the dirty keto,
Yep.
or I like to call it dirty carnivore too as well, where you'll have the odd sugar-free monster drink. So if you can't tell, these are gaming headsets, so sometimes stream or do some gaming with some friends overnight and want to stay up late. And that's another thing I get to notice, actually. I can't stay up late. I have a better circadian rhythm than I've ever had in my entire life. Because when I got ill with my GERD, um, I couldn't sleep properly. I couldn't, but I feel rested at 6 to 7 hours sleep, which is still weird to me because I'll know to go lay down in bed, but I'll still be up for hours in bed just laying down until I pass out, and then I'll get up at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and just go on my day as if, I don't need a nap or anything. Now, granted, sometimes I find during my hormonal changes, I might be more tired than not, and I'll listen to my body's cues, and I might have a nap, or I'll go for a walk, or I'll take an extra rest day, and I won't, weight train. And just becoming more intuitive made a huge, huge difference with that, realizing that I'm gaining more satisfaction with foods that are more nourishing rather than all the extra supplemental or highly marketed for weight gainers, for pre-workouts, for supplements that it was never needed to begin with.
Yep. Yep. I hear you there. There's a couple of things that I want to touch on. One of which is I want to say as well that I think it's important to play around with things and not to be so stuck and stagnant in these are the rules and it has to be this way. Because I think everybody has slightly different scenarios to what they've come to carnivore for. So they've come from very different backgrounds, or their health is in various different states. And there needs to be some adjustment for those. No matter who you are, everything should be tweaked based on your actual individual body. But also, I think that sometimes playing with those things like the supplements and the peanut butter and stuff is actually an important part of finding out what works for you and what doesn't. And kind of also, it's part of the grieving process of letting go of some of these
Yes,
foods, because you've got to get to the place of like, this just doesn't make me feel good anymore, for you to kind of go, yeah, I don't want to eat it. Like the value in eating it is not worth the pain that I suffer or the lack of
exactly,
results that I get from
exactly.
actually doing it. So I think that, like, I love that idea that you're the relaxed carnivore, because, you know, sticking to there's always the police, no matter what dietary protocol
Oh,
you go through.
of
There's
course.
always the
I've
police
had my
people.
run-ins.
Yeah. So I see it with, as a GAPS practitioner, which is about, focusing on gut healing, etc. There's always the GAPS police, then there's the keto police, and of course there's the carnivore police.
Oh,
And I'm like,
amen.
dude, you've got to remember everybody's body is different, and a guy's body is going to be different to a girl's body. And,
For
someone
sure.
who's got adrenal fatigue is going to have different things to somebody who's got other stuff that's going on. We need to tweak and change it based on them. And, we've got to love our lives as well as just eating food. But I like
Exactly.
that you're starting to move into intuitive eating. Now, I talk about this from the space of, in order to get to the place of being able to intuitively eat, you do have to go through some strictness. Like, you have to go through the process of letting go of
Oh,
sugar,
yes.
letting go of all of the other stuff, so that you can then get back to, actually, what I'm really, really drawn to is that steak or that eggs or that butter or that cheese, or, those things, and get to that place. But it takes a transitional point of letting go of, like, the chocolate is how I get my magnesium versus the sardines is how I get my magnesium, and training your brain and your body to switch over. And that kind of takes a year to two to kind of get to that place where you really are more in tune with, oh, this food is what's actually going to give me that thing that I actually need. So I'm curious, because, like, you've shared a whole heap there with us. I'm curious, how have you found carnivore has impacted your thyroid? So you found it beneficial. What were the changes there for you?
It's so far now, I'm still on my medication. I actually have planned blood work to do because I've only recently noticed, since implementing some biohacking methods, I like to call it, as of lately, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm a lifelong experiment. So I've been doing
Hmm.
lots of weird biohacking things, and it's only been in the last 2 months now that I've noticed that I'm experiencing opposite symptoms of hypothyroidism, so rather hyperthyroidism, but I'm not experiencing all of them. So nothing innately crazy like weight loss without even trying. Now
Yeah.
I'm experiencing some fat loss, but I've also experienced enough fluctuations on a monthly basis, because I do track. I like to see where I'm at and what my body's doing, that I still, on average, the average would dictate that I'm still at my normal weight. So there's nothing to that effect, nothing crazy like that, and I don't overtrain anymore. I used to, so I'm using that as a precursor. So I'll probably find out later on in the week as to whether or not I can taper down, or hopefully maybe come off of it. Because I'm noticing weird symptoms, almost like it's like my body wants to get sick, but I know it's a hormonal change, but I can feel it here. And I'm wondering, it's like, is that my thyroid telling me that I should eat more? That I'm So I feel like I still have the sensitivity. It's not as crazy and painful as it used to be before, with thanks to the help of taurine, which I don't actually need to supplement really that much anymore. It's been great. Um, that I'm hoping that I'm just closer. It's Otherwise, thyroid wise, it feels generally normal. The only thing I notice really is upon some research that, I guess, with my circadian rhythm and cortisol and the way that affects that, there's a reasonable time at nighttime where I guess the TSH will start going up. So I try to take my thyroid before I go to bed to catch it that way, because 9 times out of 10 I forget in the morning. And yeah, I'm hoping. It feels like it is, but I don't know for sure, and I won't know until I get
Yeah.
the blood work done here for sure, for sure. Because I feel like I can come off it. I just want my doctors, you're okay. Go ahead, take it off, or you know what, I'll just reduce it by half or whatever it may be, that I can come down off of it and go from there. So I'm not quite fully healed. I have, some, I'm sure, factors working against me genetically. Um, but also feel like part of the reason why I can be a relaxed carnivore, I think I feel like there is a genetic component with where culturally my background would come from hotter climates, where anti-parasitic, antifungal, antibacterial methods would have probably been more aptly used rather than things like freezing, because it wasn't
Yep.
cold at all. There was like, what is ice? Or brining may have not been as optional at the time, though, or something might have gone bad. So you know what? Let's just rub the crap out of it with rosemary and hope to God it goes down the gullet. C'est la vie. And I don't find it bothering me that, like, I hear some carnivores say that even black pepper gives them anxiety, and I don't feel the same way with regards to black pepper or even some of the other herbs and spices. But I feel like there is a genetic component to it. Like I said, it just makes life easier. So if I don't go out to eat, but if I happen to go out to eat, at least I know that I could reasonably eat something. It just might be a lot of all the meat, and the restaurant might look at me like I'm a
Yep.
crazy person, but I'm still eating, right? I get to
Yeah.
partake.
Yeah.
It's never really hindered me socially, being a carnivore. Now, granted, I am in a small town, so there's not really much around in the way of social get-togethers and whatnot. Most of my family's in the bigger city, and I don't tend to go out too far there, and they're very busy with their business and whatnot. So, um, but just getting closer to getting off the thyroid meds is my first and foremost goal. And then my secondary goal after that will be to follow along those women that are weight training and lifting and gaining lean mass, and also prove that it can be done. Like, and I know it can be done. There is IFBB pros and bikini bodies and fitness pros that do carnivore and relaxed carnivore or even ketovore and do very well in those things. And maybe one day I'll do that. I don't know. I'm not bothered to be in a rush to do something like that, but I also do want to become bigger and stronger. And because of that mindset of becoming bigger and stronger, that forced me to not pay attention to the scale so much anymore.
Yeah.
Um, the tracking I still do for my food because I want to see playing around with macros what it does for me, and what changes I notice versus like if I go really strict carnivore and I don't have any dairy, so just steak and eggs fried in lard, maybe a little bit of salt and pepper, that's it, and find out that I can only eat X amount before I'm like, oh God, if I eat another bite, I just can't stomach more ground beef. And then realize, well, I didn't eat that much, but my protein intake is super high. My fat
Yeah.
intake is still reasonably well, and it's good for my hormones. I ate too mad this day. Is not a huge stressor, so and I feel good. So why not? And I
Yeah.
have trained myself to reverse diet, and I've eaten upwards of anywhere between 2,700 calories up to 4,000 calories. Now, granted, those 4,000 calories were ketovore days and dirty keto days with keto marketed foods. So that was an experimentation. It was fun. I'll give it that. But I won't do it again. I already know and experienced it enough. So all the keto marketed foods like Magic Spoon cereal, I've had my stint with them. They were great while they lasted, but I can eat a box to myself as a meal, and that's not good. I'd rather get
Yeah.
something more dense in meat. I'd rather blow my money on meat for that. So I'd sooner go get some steaks rather than Magic Spoon cereal or nut allergies. Like I used to be allergic to almonds and hazelnuts. I haven't tried hazelnuts, but I have tried almonds, and I would like to credit going down to strict carnivore before I realized I had to go and reverse it back and pull it back to adding those low anti-nutrient ones back again, that I could handle that, and it was really 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 great. So I would recommend anyway to just take a step back. You don't have to go strict carnivore, and yes, you'll be healing, but yes, oh my goodness, you want to stress yourself out? No, it's simple. Simple. It's eggs, protein. You love your bacon and eggs. Who doesn't love bacon and eggs? Who doesn't love steak and eggs? Steak and eggs has been like when I discovered medium rare cooked steaks. Oh my God, I was in heaven. I was like, why did my mother ever cook it well done? I don't know why. And all I've ever known was well done and stewed. And I guess where she comes from, that was another heating thing and a parasite thing. You wouldn't having medium rare steak was not common in
Yeah.
down in like Trinidad. So everything's stewed and cooked properly. So, but finding that I like the rarer the better. I like my yolks runny, and everything's just fantastic there. And if I need to go out and we want to do a fancy and say like a Korean barbecue that has or teppanyaki and whatnot, it's not going to kill me to have whatever might be at the table at the time. You know,
Yeah.
and so it's never really affected me to that point. But I'm just on a personal journey of bodybuilding, biohacking, trying to fix my thyroid, and hoping I can resolve my hypothyroidism and see if I can't become a next She-Hulk.
I love it. I love it. I just want to pop in here for those of you who are watching at home. One of the things that I generally recommend for my patients who have a thyroid condition, whether it's hyper or hypo, is to test their basal metabolic temperature. So they usually have a thermometer next to their bed. As soon as they wake up, they test their temperature, and that for us is often one of the things that we can track to kind of see how's your thyroid going and what changes are happening without always having to get bloods, because usually it's 12 weeks, 6 months, depending on your doctor as to how quickly you can get those bloods done. And so when we're making some of these big changes, checking your temperature, checking your blood glucose can be two big things that actually help us go, oh, look, your body's quite stressed right now and your temperature has dropped. We need to do something about that in order to support your thyroid more, or your temperature is really up, but also your glucose is up. That tells us your thyroid's working a little bit too hard. Now might be the time to start to go have a conversation with your doctor about dropping down that medication and seeing some of those things. So for those that are following along at home, there's a little thing that you can do. And I love tracking, like I have my own book here of everything that I've been able to track over the last 8 months of what's happening with my own body. And I'm sure you would find as well, like I did something couple of months, well, about a month or so ago, I dyed my hair. And the next morning, my blood glucose had been like at 5. It was really, really good. And then I dyed my hair. It was the only thing that I had changed that day. And my blood glucose the next day had gone up to an 8. So the chemical exposure to that hair dye stressed my body enough that it actually pumped out some glycogen in response to that. And those are little things that you find when you track. And I know a lot of people don't want to track, they just want to like not have to think about it. But I kind of nerd out on that stuff. Like it's not about, oh, you're really bad. It's about, oh, that's really interesting that that's how my body responded to that. So if I dye my hair again, I'm definitely going to be like watching to see did my blood glucose go up again. But I'm curious, have you found those types of things for you? Like when you're sort of tracking and you're trying to do some of the biohacking and those types of things, did you find, oh, I hadn't noticed that caused a response before, but now I do?
Yes and no. I don't have a lot of tools at my disposal like a glucose monitor, or I used to test urine ketones back in the day. It was more, I only picked them up only basically, I was trying to prove a point that you're always in ketosis when you're eating ketogenically, which I did prove it. Pun intended. I hate that company, but that I didn't really have much of a gauge other than what I'm experiencing. So for the recent changes that I have noticed, that I should have taken measurements. I should have taken before and after shots, but I didn't think to do it until I started implementing it. It was that I feel stronger in the past 2 months. I feel like where I'm looking for muscle gain has gotten bigger in the last couple of months. My menstrual cycle is more regular, is definitely not as painful. I think I might have taken one painkiller last time. I don't really remember. That's how infrequent, because it used to be like clockwork every day. As soon as I usually, because of the type of painkiller I was prescribed, we're supposed to take it in advance, and I'd be sensitive enough actually that I would notice the pains prior to it coming, so I could preemptively take it. And oh shoot, where was I going with this now? I lost my train of thought.
Your pain relief. So
My pain relief, yes, irregular cycles. So yeah, I can't even tell when my period is about to arrive. They're not lasting a week anymore. They're down to about 3 to 4 days ish now, which is great. Um, they used to be also really, really short too. They used to be every 3 weeks, which made me cry because a month is 4 weeks. So every 3 weeks I was going through hell and I hated it and my life sucked. I actually used to have to ditch work for it. And most people could understand that. Or I would have to bring a heating pad to work, which is embarrassing as in itself. And trying to explain to people that you have the most ridiculous period pains in the world is just, you don't want to share that with everybody, really. I mean,
yeah,
I'm doing it
exactly.
now, but it's in the past. I don't have to deal with that anymore. So it's been just beautifully great with these biohacking methods that I'm doing. So basically, there's lots of people online that I follow: Dr. Mindy Pels, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Stenbeck. Oh, I forget the Indian gentleman. He does with the heart and talks about fasting. There's that gentleman. Lustig, Dr.
Oh,
Lustig.
yeah. Is that Jason Fu?
Jason Fung, I loosely follow, but
Fung.
not quite. With regards to intermittent fasting and fasting on a whole. And lots of people, Dr. Sean Baker, and I do follow some, some weight trainers. So like more plates, more dates. Hence, I got the Magic Spoon coupon to try that out. Uh, Shout out to him because that was great at the time. Sorry, don't buy it no more. And was it MPS or MAPS? Another YouTube. They talk about a lot of weight training and how to build muscle and fat loss and stuff. So I like to dabble it here and there, and that's how I've come to realize that less is more. So doing that aspect of bodybuilding and weight training. So those are my, so far what I'm using their tips is what I feel is actually working. Learning that cholesterol, even though my cholesterol would make the average doctor go, "What the?" And you should be on statins, and I'm gonna be like, "No, no, I'm not gonna go on statins." But using that, because cholesterol itself is a steroid, and insulin in itself is an anabolic steroid. So I'm putting the two together and feeding at specific times in tandem with my weight training in a less is more fashion, but progressive overload. And that's what I feel between that and the carnivore eating that is getting me a little bit more muscle gain than I before. So I feel like I'm trying to catch up to some other people because I did overtrain in my first year. As only been carnivore for just over, or relaxed carnivore rather, just over a year now, with dabbling back and forth into ketovore, just to see how I felt and whatnot. And I probably made more gains, or I feel it's like I've made more gains in the last 2 months than I have in the whole previous year, because
Mm.
I've changed those biohacking methods. So that's really my gauge, is how I'm feeling. And I'm finding a lot of the anecdotal evidence of people's experiences on this lifestyle, on this way of eating. And the proof is in the pudding. But lots of people post their pictures of their before and afters, what they've done, and all this, and their blood work, and it's like, well, that's amazing. It's like, why are we such anomalies? Why is that it's being tested? And only recently that Harvard study came out, that not too long ago, and I read it and I thought, I'm like, well, that's great. I like that. That's seems to be the case for me, and I'm seeing in lots of other groups, plenty girls bodybuilding, gaining lean mass, able to eat like 2,700 calories to bulk, still doing the bulking and cutting, but doing it carnivorously, and the gains is that I've seen is insane. So I basically on a similar journey, and that's my goal, is to bodybuild, get bigger, get leaner, as I've now finally gotten out of that mindset that I can still track my foods, but I know I'm more intuitively eating, because I know I can only force myself to eat so much meat, and I can
Yep.
only force myself to eat so much fat. And if I want to eat more meat, then 9 times out of 10, it's more salt, seasoning, and fats that get it down. And it happens to be butter for me. I'm a butter girl. I love my butter.
I love butter too. I do want to say as well, for me, I've just started to implement some weights into my lifestyle. And one of the things that I have noticed carnivore wise is the recovery is so much quicker. Like, okay, I'll tell you the
Very.
story. The first day I got my weights, I know that the first day it's not going to hurt. Like, I might feel weak doing the things, but it's not going to hurt if I keep going. It's the next day it's going to hurt. So on the first day, I just go as hard and as fast as I possibly can, knowing that tomorrow I'll feel the pain and I won't want to move and I'll feel like I'm hit by a truck. But normally it's the second day after that that you feel even worse. And so
Yes.
I got the weights, I did the thing, I did probably a million squats that day and a million lifts that day just because I could. And then the next day I was like, oh, I can't sit down on
Oh
the
no.
toilet. Yeah.
Help me
And I
here.
was exactly. And I was like, oh, tomorrow's going to be so bad. And I rolled over in bed in the next morning and I was better. I was like, half that pain level the next day. And normally it's like double the pain level the next day. Like if you think that the day after working out's bad, it's the day after that's really bad.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I have noticed with carnivore is that second day of like, it's going to ouch doesn't come. it actually, the repair happens so much more quickly than without being on carnivore. Do you find that too for yourself? Have you noticed any of those things?
Oh, 100%. Now I guess what they call it, the delayed muscle pain. What is it? Not, I want to think DPS, but that's a gaming term, damage per second. But we're not playing a video game here, the video game called Life. Uh, delayed muscle onset. It's like MPS. I can't. Someone in the comments, I'm sure, knows what I'm trying to say, and will say it down
Yep.
there for you. But because of what I've been implementing, I do get soreness. But because okay, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes only, 3 times a week in weight training is all I do. Okay. When I'm done that 10 minutes, it feels like it was at least a half an hour to maybe even hours of training. Like I feel like, oh man, that was a good hour session. No, that was only 10 minutes, bro. And then I'll feel it a bit the next day. And I know I'm just like, wow, I really worked it, even though but then my mind's like, that was only 10 minutes that I did. I really didn't do that much. But it was very focused and it was very
Yep.
purposeful, and less is more progressive overload approach that I decided to take. So, but by the second day, that normally, like, okay, I'm out for the count, I just want to like be curled up in bed. Like when we used to overtrain, that's when I would feel like if 48 hours, if I overtrained it, and the pain would just be, it would knock me out. I might as well be in bed with a heating pad and just call it a day. um I don't feel that. I don't get that anymore. I'm ready to go for my next day, and I do like to give that recovery for the muscles to rebuild. So I'll do usually every other day, and if my extra in between, I had to run some errands, go grocery shopping, because I usually do walk to my grocery store because it's a small town. I just walk down the road, and I'll carry it by my arms. I'll push the cart and I'll go up the stairs. There's no elevator in my apartment, unfortunately, so I have to carry them heavy groceries upstairs on my own. So I don't mind that. I'll give myself an extra rest day. I won't work out. Listening to my body has yielded me more gains than I've ever experienced in my life, and I hope to continue that growth. And but yeah, that muscle pain like, I know that I did work. I feel some aches, but it's
Mm.
nothing compared to what I used to experience as somebody who is dieting down or on a carbohydrate laden diet, or highly carb loaded. I used to do lots of competitive swimming growing up as a kid, and a lot of my meals, because we were basically mostly vegetarian, was a lot of carbs, like pasta and meat sauce. That
Yep.
was it, piled high, because we were swimming 3 or 4 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, and I didn't know any better. I thought carbs were always great growing up. And so I started getting ill and sick, and then I had to make a change, and becoming obese several times in my life, up and down, this it takes a toll on you and your mental health and your self-esteem, and you start questioning yourself, and like, well, I mean, I could be comfortable with the way I am, but if I want a long life, well, what can I do to prolong that longevity in age? What can I do so I can live long, like my great grandmother has, or my great 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 grandmothers? Apparently, they lived into their hundreds, but I'm not sure that they were all carnivore. Um, I know vegetarianism is fairly prevalent, or non-ruminant proteins, in my extended family, being mostly of a Hindu descent. So c'est la vie. And they have me on. Some of my family has sees what I do on my Facebook. They know that I promote meat. It's totally fine. You can find me there as well. It's Relaxed Carnivore Jenaya. You can give me a follow there, and I do run a private ketogenic and carnivore Facebook group. True Keto is all you gotta search. You do need to bypass some membership questions. That's mostly to deter network marketers, because
Yep.
I don't believe in selling supplements. There is no magic pills. There's no magic supplements. If you eat a correct, nutrient dense, whole, unprocessed way of eating, you will heal yourself. And the weight loss will just come. You won't even need to try. It'll come. Your body will thank you for it. You don't need to do none of these starvation diets. You don't need to overtrain. Just eat good. None of this box crap, none of this keto ice creams, none of these keto cereal. Oh my God. Oh, no. And you don't need exogenous ketones. Oh my God. Please don't. Please, please, please don't. You're just asking for trouble. But that's a whole different tangent for anti-MLM and prove it and the ketogenic community and using exogenous ketones. I'm very against it. Very, very, very against anything you can do cheaply. I'm for. Your body makes ketones on its own. Why am I paying for it? There's no
Yeah.
point, right? I can fast and
Well,
get ketones.
I agree with you too. Like, I don't think there's any point in that. I do think, like, as a naturopath, I use some supplements for somebody who's sick to get them to the point of food
Yes.
being their source of medicine. The same as people would use some medication to get to that place. But ultimately, my goal as a practitioner is to get you as close as possible, depending on what's happened with your body. So some of my
Agreed.
patients have had their thyroid removed. So they're never going to be able to get to that place where their thyroid can heal because they don't have the organ anymore. But others, we're going to get as close as we possibly can to being medication supplement free. And you're really just doing diet as the process to actually heal your body. For those of you who want those links, they'll be down in the comments or in the description section as well. So if you heard any of those little things there, join this Facebook group and come and find her on Facebook. I will put those down below so you'll be able to find them there. But there was something else that you touched on too, which I know is a really big thing. And I wish, like, man, you said it too, which was, I wish I knew decades ago what I know now, because mentally, like, I think I've gone through so much more trauma from what's happened with my body that I didn't actually need to go through if I'd actually just been allowed to eat meat, which is actually what I was attracted to, versus the vegetables, and like trying to make my brain go, no, you need to eat the vegetables because they're really good for you. Like, there's so much of that actually went through my head, even coming to carnivore as, my background as a naturopath and nutritionist. I had to work through all of that mental stuff that I had been taught with my, educational knowledge of like how, you eat these vegetables and these things and you need fiber and you need all of that type of stuff. Like, I had to work through a whole heap of that to be able to get to the point of going, no, I'm just going to experiment and see what happens and let it go. And all of that. But I think the other part is when you're used to carrying weight and you've carried weight for a long time and you gain really quickly from a fat perspective versus a muscle perspective, there's a lot of social stigma. There's a lot of name calling. You mentioned some of the names you got called that build up into our social psyche of who we think we are, what we're allowed to have, and will this actually even work for us? I'm curious about what you've done and what you've found for yourself in regards to that mental space of, that whole journey of transitioning from where you were to now where you are today.
Wow, it's been quite a mental journey, changing the way of thinking about how I want my body to be. It took a lot of chatting with my own sibling, who I mentioned is pretty much carnivore. I'd say ketovore twice a year, or at least that's what they tell me. They might have the odd beets and Brussels sprouts during Christmas, but otherwise they're pretty carnivore themselves. And talking with them and talking with a lot of people with regards to weight training, physical exercise, realizing that learning that thyroid is adversely affected by low calorie diets, adversely affected by other hormetic stressors. So fasting too much, which I was basically doing because I trained myself to do OMAD actually for the longest time. And I loved it. I could do OMAD every day, all day. Had no idea that it was this hormetic stressor that could be adversely affecting it. And it got brought up in my before about my hair, and I brushed it off. I didn't really say yay or nay about it until I noticed it myself that it was getting worse, and that's when the hypothyroidism showed up in my blood work. That he's like, well, you need to go back on your medication. I was like, well, crud, I don't want to be on medication. So it took that realizing and learning that, okay, well, if I can't diet down to the body that I want, then what is my ideal body? And discussing with other people that it's more, there's the idea of set point weight and the idea that your genetics play a role, and trying to wrap my head around that, depending what I feed and give building blocks I give my body, it will in time and in turn yield where it wants to be, weight wise, composition wise, muscle, lean mass, bone structure, whatever it may be, as long as I'm giving it the proper building blocks. So it took some time, and I just started, like, still weigh myself almost daily. Now, don't do it for the same reason that most people do. Is like, did I drop weight today? No. Did I drop weight? No, 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 no. I do it to see is if I use it more of a tool to see if, like, oh, I noticed weight gain. Did I eat lots yesterday? No. But what time of the month is it for me? Is my ovulation coming? Yes. Usually I'll gain a pound or two around there. Gain 5 pounds, guess what's coming? My period's coming. As if I gain 5 pounds of water weight. It's like, well, I was feasting on a couple steaks here and 8 eggs there, and yeah, that would do it too. So I use it more as a tool. It's never now become obsessive like it used to be. I used to be like, my lowest I got down, and I actually looked anorexic to the average person, was 110 pounds. I am presently, because I did refeed a couple days ago from a 48-hour fast. So I'm about 135 pounds right now. But I weigh about what I weighed in high school, except I've got more lean muscle mass now, which
Yeah.
is great, and that's what I wanted. So I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gaining lean mass, and then also learning that a lot of what we see on social media is filtered. And if it's not filtered, especially in female bodybuilding, there's a good chance that they're not natural. So hormone replacement therapy, testosterone, anavar, D-bol, whatever it may be, that a lot of the physiques that some women are getting that seem ungodly and very masculine, there's a lot of people, and I feel like I'm one of them. I usually can tell if someone is natty or not. So there's those too, and realizing that those are unattainable items. Those are things that are affecting your hormones that you probably shouldn't do. In the long run, you don't know what it's going to do to you. Is it just for a fad? Is it your body dysmorphia? Do you feel that you need to look this way, or can we work on something that nourishes you, heals you, fixes what might be going on inside, whether it's mentally or physically or physiologically, or thyroid, your adrenals, your diabetes, whatever it may be. Let's fix that first, and the rest will just come.
Yeah. I will add, you just said something there which was fabulous, which was around, those photos that you're seeing online of those women that are doing those things. There's a lot of things you can do with a camera to make you look good.
Oh, for
But then
sure.
the other thing is that even those women that are doing those things, they probably don't look like that on their everyday. So, for some of those bodybuilders, they'll do things like a dry fast for, 48 hours, which is no food, no water, for 48 hours before they take those photos or they go into a competition, in order to like really lean down their body so that they can show off the definition of their muscles. That's not what they look like every day of their lives. It's what they look like
Exactly.
when they're dry fasted. But that's not the information that people get when they look at those photos. They don't go, this is her dry fasted, she hasn't done this for 2 days, and after this she's going to have a crash and she's going to need to do blah 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 blah, or a thyroid's going to go down. Like, you don't get all of that picture of that information in that. So I love that. You also touched on OMAD, and I see a lot of thyroid patients that go, I could do OMAD, no problems. Like, no problems, because they don't feel hungry in the beginning of the day, and they kind of just keep themselves going to maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they have a big giant meal and they feel good. And the thing that I say for my patients is, especially if they've got a hypothyroidism, is you've got to start your day with food. So 7 o'clock, if you're up, you've got to put food in your mouth. If you want to OMAD for the rest of the day, go for it. But I can tell you, if you eat at 7 o'clock, you're going to be hungry sometime later in the day, because you've jump started your metabolism. And so let's move your eating window to the start of the day so your thyroid doesn't get stressed, and do your autophagy at the end of the day. And you'll find that that really affects and impacts the thyroid and how well it's actually functioning when you feed it versus starving it and making it stressed. Because It's an interesting relationship between the thyroid and the adrenal system.
Oh, it's
So
immense.
yeah, and that all comes with learning and understanding. And I think for me, that's one of my favorite parts about working with people and say carnivore or any of the other things, because I'll use keto with people and I'll use GAPS with people based on their goals and what they want to achieve, because I'm not at their house. I'm not going to be cooking their steak for them. They have to do it. And so one of the things that I noticed there, my favorite part, is actually to help people understand, how does your body work? How does it function? What's going on for it? Because I weigh myself every day, just like you. When I have a scale, I weigh myself every day from that perspective, like, how did my body cope with what I did to it yesterday? So, the day that I did a heap of exercise, I know I'm going to be like 2 kilos heavier the next day, because my body's put on a lot of inflammation. It's moving and growing and building and doing all the things that I want it to do, and it's totally logical that that's what happens. But also, did I do something else that was either beneficial or not beneficial for my body? Did I eat like a herb that I haven't eaten before, and suddenly now I've gotten like a kilo of extra water weight that's hanging around? Maybe I'll experiment with taking that out and seeing, how did that affect my body, versus, if I weigh more, I'm a bad person and this is going to be a bad day and I crack and I'm suck and all of that type of stuff. You really got to get over that mindset and go, this is just data. All it is data. And it's telling me some information to help me discover what's working great for my body and what's not working so great for my body. So I love to track as well from that perspective, just to kind of see what's actually working, what's actually happening. Now, I am aware of time, and so I do want to just say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience. Please share one more time for the people at home who want to reach out to you and say, hey, I'm going through these things too. Can they message you? Can they send you
Oh,
a
for
message?
sure. Yeah, you are more than welcome to message me. You can find me on Facebook. Again, that's Relaxed Carnivore Jenaya. You can look for my private Facebook Keto Carnivore group is True Keto. There are membership questions to bypass. Send me a message, send me a DM. I can get you in. I can bypass that. It's more preventative measures than anything. We don't like spam, scams, or magical supplements and pills. So that's why. So I apologize ahead in advance, but send me a DM. I am just a mentor of keto and carnivore life. I've been doing this for quite some time, both ketogenically and carnivore. And I've got some great tips, and I've helped a lot of people in this community. And I'm just really excited and on a mission to hopefully help more people follow a similar lifestyle, if not get some better healing. That's it. That's all I
Awesome.
want. Just everybody get healing. You have
I
nothing
love
to
that.
lose.
Absolutely. I really, really love that, because that's the goal. The goal is to get to that place of healing and learning how your body works, seeing how it functions, and going with that versus anything else. So again, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a beautiful conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I look forward to talking to you again soon, hopefully in the future. And thanks for everybody who's watching along at home. Bye for now. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you in this space again sometime soon. Bye for now. See you later.